So what up? What up? Welcome back to another episode of Ticking Gray Bomb Refined Taste for Idiots. I am Mex,
I am Mace.
and we're going to continue in this mini series a walk up to WindUp, and we are previewing a series of brands that are being featured in the WindUp Watch Fair in New York City coming up here the weekend of October 20th, 21st, and 22nd. So we're about 2 weeks away, and we're sharing with you some of our favorite micro brands that have caught our attention who are also participating in WindUp. The first brand we'll look at today is Echor Neutra, who was founded by two 40-something-year-old Italians from northeastern Italy, much like Autodromo, folks who have studied and worked in industrial design and aerospace. But they have kind of a very simple, yet in a way timeless, almost vintage-inspired aesthetic across their let's say 5 or 6 product families. The company was founded in Padova in, I think, 2018. They had a very successful Kickstarter launch, which kind of put them on the map with their Avaro. I guess Avaro is their core brand. They have a couple of families. You have Avaro, which again very simple, sleek European aesthetic. You have Cortina, so you see a Cortina. Okay, that's when you think of Echor Neutra, that's what you think about, right? Again, very simple aesthetic. That's what they launched with. They have a Cortina line with a chrono and also kind of a bronze case chrono, which is nice. They have an Avaro moon phase, which actually I have to say they're the northern and southern hemisphere moon phases, so very reminiscent of what IWC does in their big pilot. So I found this very intriguing to me. And again, when we look at the price points, pretty compelling, right? For a moon phase, a Swiss-made moon phase at $790, $800. That's a pretty compelling value to me. Okay, and so in a previous video, I featured Mase watches, and Mase seemed to really leverage one movement platform, the ETA 2892 platform across multiple watch families. And I would say Echor Neutra does the same thing. They really rely heavily on Sellita. In many cases, the Sellita SW279 is their workhorse. One watch I did want to drill down into is actually their Cristallo collection. I think this is a new release for them. And I don't know, Mace, when you call it up, I don't know if it hits you, but I felt like this is a poor man's Seamaster Ultra Deep. Okay. And when we look at aesthetically, very, for me, kind of very clear allusion to that very high-end watch. We're selling this at basically 1,200 euros. I think that's potentially great value. So we talk about the Sellita movement. It's about 42 mil with a helium escape valve at the 9 o'clock position. Ceramic bezel with kind of a unique meter marker output, which I found very interesting, and 500 meters of water resistance. Okay. So I think, for me, out of all those pieces, this is probably the one that resonated most with me. And you've heard me say this before. It's like, do I need another dive watch? Hell no, I do not need another dive watch. But I may swap out of some of my Seikos in order to work this into the collection, because I would probably acquire this before I acquired a Seamaster.
Interesting. So the one that speaks to me is the chrono.
Okay.
And not surprising if you've watched any of our channels and what's in my collection. So I really like this. It reminds me of the Nevada Grenchen, Chronomaster,
Yeah,
Aviator, Sea Diver, right? Especially these black dial models. I like the one with the sort of aged
yeah.
parchment color at the subdials at the 3 and 9. Um, that just speaks to me. That's not a surprise to anyone who's watched the channel. So
Yeah. No, no, agree. I mean, throughout this, the design language here, so they have a limited edition up in the upper left-hand corner, that Tennis Club Padova edition. That doesn't, I don't feel like it really fits with their collection. I feel like the other pieces, and you can see, I agree, Mace, you talk about that kind of luminous sand, right? That's designed to mimic a patina of a vintage watch. That really, I think that connects much more with the design aesthetic that they've been going with.
right, absolutely, totally agree.
So that's it for me for Echor Neutra.
So the brand that I'm going to cover now is Fairer, a micro brand that started in 2015. They're pretty popular among the kind of the real watch enthusiast, especially in the sub $2,000 range. It's a British watch, Swiss made, they'll tell you. And I will say this: they make a handsome watch, and they play with color. And in most cases, that color play is not childish, like some of the other brands that we've seen recently play with color in such in somewhat of a bizarre way.
I mean, look, they're nice. They're again, I don't think they try to do too much on the dial. I think they have a much kind of a much more simplistic approach, which is nice. Um, you know, I don't feel like they're cheap homages. I think they have their own style for sure.
A couple of models I wanted to showcase. Um, the first of which is their moon phase, if the scroll would cooperate with me, and it is not. So I'll just pull this up. A few colorways that they have, and I will say, once you see this watch, um, you will, at least to me,
Hmm,
the size of the moon phase is very large, larger than I think I've seen anywhere else.
I
Um,
agree.
but it takes up a large percentage of the dial. I even thinking about um, like a longe. I would say it's smaller than that when you see it on the dial. So this anyway, I think is very handsome. They've got a couple of colorways, as I mentioned. They've got the navy dial. They have this kind of salmon dial,
I like it.
and they have this teal, perhaps, maybe seafoam.
Yeah,
I don't think it's as green as a seafoam, but in any event, they play with color, and I think in this line very tastefully.
yeah,
The next, let me give you some of the specs there. 38.5 millimeters across, 10 and a half thick, 44 lug to lug. It's a manual wound Salida movement, 45-hour power reserve. It has an exhibition case back. So since I mentioned it, might want to show that. And one thing to notice on the side of the dial, this textured approach, I think that is really handsome. I don't think enough brands kind of play with the slab side of their dial. So kudos to them for doing so. And I think the movement is handsome.
yeah. Agree. I mean,
I would
yeah,
say,
I like the elaborate here.
yeah, and
Yeah, it's a speed of movement, but I mean, this is nice detail here.
I would say in this case, having the exhibition case back is worthwhile.
Agree.
In
And this is what's
another,
the price point on this, Mace? 16,
it's,
$1,700.
yeah, 1700. All of their
Yeah,
watches on the site are between, let me see, $8 and $2,400 US.
so I'd say right in the
Yeah,
ticking gray bomb sweet spot.
exactly. Another watch I wanted to showcase was the GMT Automatic. So this watch to me, Max, I don't know how familiar you are with Oak and Oscar, but
Not really.
they have a watch. They have one of the nicest blue color dials I've ever seen. I just love that color blue that they have. They feature it in several of their watch lines, if you will. This This is not the same color. This is, I think, a sea green, they're calling it, with an orange pop of color on two of the hands. Um, I think this is also tastefully done. GMT, where the 24 hours are on the dial. And I'll show you the other colorways. There are two more. There's this navy, and then this limited edition on the bottom. I would
How come
say
you ain't palming any?
exactly, and I would say this sort of looks like that Grand Seiko 221,
Yes.
right?
Yeah. That we saw
This is
watches in Switzerland.
exactly. This is more colorful, more playful, and not nearly as expensive. But I think it reminds me of that a bit. So some of the specs on these watches, you've got um, Salida SW330, 56 hours of power. Uh, let's see, 39.5 diameter, 10.8 thick, 45 lug to lug, 20 lug width. The exhibition case back, I should drill down into one of these because this is where I would say the exhibition case back is not necessarily anything special. So not a great picture there. I think there's a, so this one, it's all right, kind of perfunctory, right? Not the greatest,
Yeah.
not the most detailing there. So this watch
Yeah.
is 1550. And the third and last watch I wanted to showcase to show you that while Farer does show some restraint in their use of color, this one is where they absolutely do not. Um, so, and I'm going to show you their video. Yes, here it is popping up. So these are pretty wild, pretty, um, I don't know,
Yeah. Very swatchy, very kind of moon swatchy.
and sort of some of the colors that you might see in some of these summer watches that companies produce. I was thinking of Zodiac of late. There's another one, I forget who else puts out some of these wild colors. It's not even the wild colors. Sometimes it's the combination of colors, two or three wild colors together. So two of the dials have a wave pattern, two have 5-minute markers around the dial. And you'll see the one with the royal dial and the red numerals around the bezel. And I apologize if I said dial when I meant bezel. But the red on the blue, I would say, is not really legible. And call that up here. This watch, you can see this is the one where it's got the red numerals along the bezel. It's hard to see. The contrast really isn't there. The numerals aren't thick enough to kind of read easily.
Yeah.
There's another Salida movement, 41-hour power reserve, 38.5 millimeters in diameter, 12 millimeters thick, 45 to lug, and again, 20 millimeter lug width. All of these watches fall between, as I said, $800 or $900 and $2,400 US. So, as you see, as I just kind of scroll down their portfolio, they have a lot of product lines. Yeah, so I just wanted to show you all of the different colorways across their various product lines. And you'll see a lot of use of color. Some of it tastefully done, most of it tastefully done, I think. Some of it a little distracting, especially on that aquamatic line where I think, you would see this more geared towards an all-inclusive beach resort, headed for a disappointing warm weather vacation. This is this is how I imagine things. Some of those colors are very distracting, but most are tastefully done, as I've mentioned before. Yeah, thoughts on Farrer?
Yeah, so out of the four watch brands that we've previewed to date, Farrer I think is by far the best known. And in fact, I would say coming out of the 2021 windup that I was able to attend, it was the company that made the most impression on me, in particular, kind of their GMT line. I was very impressed that this kind of that the startup micro brand was able to do such a nice GMT. For me, I would say their Rocher, I think it's Rocher, World Time. Again, no surprise that I would gravitate towards a World Time piece. This is a very compelling offering to me. One where I feel like I would acquire and have in my collection. 1,500. So you can see it's sold out, returning spring of next year. But at $1,500, a world time watch, particularly with some funky luminova, the loom, the kind of loom on the dial. I think this is a really cool piece that could get some wrist time in my collection.
I'm glad you brought this up. It was something I considered including, but I knew that you might bring this up for your love of World Time.
That's right.
Yeah, so I agree. I think the Rocher is a lot more handsome than the Markham. If you're to go with either of these, the Rocher is the one to go. Figured that'd be right up your alley.
Yeah. And the other reason why the Rocher kind of, I've used this word quite a lot today, but the Rocher design language speaks to me is because also we featured my Nomos World Time, and that has that creamish dial. I'd want something, if I add another World Time, I'd want it to be contrasting with that. So I would think a darker dial combined with the Super Luminova functionality could help with that.
So we covered Farer and Echor Neutra in our walk up to wind up. Once again, that's October 20th, 21st, 22nd, 2023. I know both Mex and I are excited about getting our hands on some of these pieces and learning more about the brand. And who knows, maybe we'll see you there. If you like this content, please like and subscribe. Please let us know if you want to have a look at another brand, have us rant and rave about them. And we'll see you in the next video. See ya.
Bye bye.